We are live. Hello, Facebook and YouTube world. This is Pat the Bear, and it is our first episode of the Bears in the City Small Business Spotlight. As you can see on, wait, no, hold on. There, and under there, right there. Yeah, there we go. Trying to work backwards with my hands. It is our first episode. I decided that once I got myself situated here in Chicago, that I wanted to do something to highlight and put focus onto small businesses in the time of coronavirus. A lot of our smaller businesses are certainly hurting in this whole climate of closures and events being canceled. And I wanted to be able to do something. I'm not able to do a ton a lot of the times just because I too am dealing with a lot of these issues from the coronavirus pandemic and from doing this move to Chicago. But I figured a way for me to be able to give back was to shine a little light, a spotlight, if you will, on some of these small businesses. Now, I know a lot of people that are that have brick and mortar stores that are small business owners, and I want to feature them as well. But I figured the first way to kind of showcase for the small business spotlight was to take an artist, somebody who is a small business owner and is being hurt by the fact that the street festivals, that a lot of these festivals that take place during the summer here in Chicago are not going to be happening. There was hope that maybe later in the summer, but as of right now, obviously things are a little shaky. States are starting to reopen and seeing mixed effects on whether or not that's a good thing. I personally don't think it is just yet, but that's me. That's not what we're here to discuss. But I wanted to bring in an author that is a dear friend of mine and someone who got me to read, which, for those of you who know me, that's not usually a very easy thing to do. So I want to welcome to our live stream, ladies and gentlemen, this is David J. Collins. Hey, David, how are
Hello.
you?
Hey, Pat. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's the
Excellent.
throng of people that are just eagerly waiting for this interview.
Love it. I could hear every one of them.
Fantastic. So, David,
Yes.
I'm going to start with the easy questions. I'm like, this is a hard hitting report right now, but um, so what got you into writing?
This is going back to grade school. I wrote short stories that I showed to my parents and my teachers, and I got really good feedback. And English was just always something that I enjoyed. I thought it was, pretty good at it. At some point, I thought maybe I would actually go to writing or journalism as a career. But it really never left me. So even though I didn't choose writing as a career, I've always enjoyed writing. I love the escape. I love just, listening to the dialogue of characters that comes to me. And it was in the late, like mid 2005, 2008, I started getting a story that became Gay Bash together. And by 2014, after many, many, many rejections of my proposal and of the book itself, I just decided to become an indie author and release it myself as an ebook. I wanted to share the story because I hadn't seen it in the market. I wanted a story that really felt very Chicago, where I live, and reflected the neighborhood. And even though it's a fictional story, I wanted the story to reflect our reality. And it's a story about a reserved gay man who fights back against two attackers and changes his life.
Okay, so let's take a look at the title because I think that sometimes,
Yes.
and I know for me originally, I was like, this is kind of an odd like push. Be like, okay, well, here's the title.
Yeah,
Here, go read Gay Bash. It's
right.
become such a thing that members of the LGBTQ plus community have kind of had to shy away from because it's a fear that we all live with every single day. So, what inspired you to take that and really kind of put power into it from the LGBTQ perspective and make that the focus and the title for the book itself.
Yeah. It's a provocative title, and I knew with a title like that, I needed to treat the subject matter very thoughtfully and make sure that there was a fair amount of weight and reality. Again, even though it's a fictional story, but I also wanted it to kind of surprise the reader. In fact, it is a story about someone who fights back. So it's kind of a turn on the title, which you're expecting this to be something where it's a physical confrontation, which does happen in the story. What I don't see a lot outside the realm of sci-fi or superhero is just a regular character who fights back, who really stands up for himself for the first time in his life. I again hadn't seen very much of those kinds of stories in the LGBTQ, in the gay fiction genre, and I wanted to make a contribution, and that's why I wrote the story.
That's fantastic. And honestly, after reading it, it really does make sense, and it does um, encapsulate kind of what the feeling is behind the story, and that's a huge part of really just trying to figure out and go along with the story as you're reading. And like I said, I'm not kidding in any way, shape, or form when I say that I I don't often read, and when I got Gay Bash on my first trip up here to Chicago, um, I made a promise to myself that, and if anybody that listens to Flame On regularly, last year, I think it was last year, it was my 2019 resolution to myself was that I was going to read a book, and I was going to read Gay Bash. And it's this all kind of worked out well timing wise, because as we'll get into in a minute, Gay Bash is set around this weekend in the storyline, and that was kind of what prompted me to say, okay, I'm going to get off my ass and I'm going to read this book, because it took me from September, when we first met, when I went to the Andersonville. Oh, what's the festival in
Midsummer
September?
Fest.
I, when I was here for Midsummer
Yes.
Fest,
Yes.
and I picked up the book, and I was like, okay, I've had this since September. It is now May. I've said that I'm going to read this book, and I'm going to do this, and I did, and honestly, it was I've told so many people about it. I've spoken so highly of you on the podcast and talking to people, because even regardless of doing the spotlight show, I'm a huge supporter of artists, whether they're LGBTQ or not, and to have somebody
Yeah.
that is a part of the community that is doing such great work, I want other people to know about that. Hence why we're here. So, why don't you give us a little bit more of a walkthrough of what Gay Bash is, what kind of the story is, and then maybe we can do a little reading from it.
Absolutely, I love that. I'm so glad you mentioned Midsummer Fest in the amazing neighborhood of Andersonville, which is where my other novel, Summerdale, is set. Gay Bash is set in right here in Lakeview in the Boys Town section, which a lot of people know, Halsted Street. And I wanted it to feel real. So there are a couple of scenes that take place in actual, real establishments like Roscoe's and Sidetrack and places that a lot of us know. But I wanted to set those scenes in those particular bars and those particular businesses because they were very much a part of my own coming out. I can't imagine, you know, in the 80s, 90s, going through coming out, really, becoming honest with yourself and not having a place to go, not having a community, not having supportive bars and friends that you meet that way. So when I brought the manuscript to the owners, because you need to do that in fiction, they both gave me permission to include their businesses, and I was honored by that. And I thank both of them in the acknowledgments. I also, want to mention that I have an incredible support network with friends like you, with my family, and especially with my parents, who have been extremely nurturing of creativity since I was little. And in fact, I dedicated the book to them, for that reason, because they've been so loving and nurturing and supportive of me, my entire life. So the story is a little bit about family, with Matt kind of, creating a new relationship with his parents. It's a little bit about unrequited love. It's a little bit also about realizing that the things that you covet in other people, the things you're jealous of, actually are already within you. There's no reason to be jealous. There's no reason to, feel like you can't go find community. In fact, if you become more interested in people, as the main character Matt does, the community finds him. And that's really one of the things I wanted to leave in the story. And another thing before I do the reading is, and I think it's so important right now because we're all feeling very isolated from one another, feeling very socially distant. It's to tell the people that you love them without hesitation, without apology, without reservation. And that's something else that comes across unexpectedly in the characters. So the reading that I'd like to do is from later in the book, and it's a scene after the attack. So it's a scene with Matt and one of the amazing female characters in the book named Ariana, who is a hospital counselor. And the scene is especially, well, I'll read the scene and then I'll talk about why I enjoy the scene so much.
All right. So I'm going to dip out of the picture here so that way I can put the focus on you. And here we go.
Perfect. Matt guffawed. No, I don't want that life. Their friendships are just based on how they look, not for anything that they've accomplished. You know what? How they look is who they are. A shiver ran down Matt's spine. How they look is all they are. Not one of those guys is making the world a better place. Not one. Ariana raised an eyebrow. Are you, Matthew? He looked shocked. This isn't about me. I'm not the one forcing my privileged life onto everyone else. This is about them. Ariana smiled and held out a hand. Matthew, you'll never build yourself up by tearing someone else down. That's jealousy, and jealousy controls you, not the other way around. Do you understand that? The only life you have the right to judge is your own. And so often, especially in, with social media, I feel, I feel jealousy. I can still feel that. So whenever I am, noticing, someone else has more followers or, whatever is making me jealous that moment, I actually come back and I reread this scene and it just recenters me. And I realize that it's not helping myself. It's not helping anybody. And it shifted my thinking the way it shifted the character's thinking. So that's the scene I like to come back to myself.
That's fantastic. So I kind of alluded to it earlier, but talk about the time frame setting of the book and why it's so important this weekend.
It is. And I am really excited to talk with you this evening because the story begins the Thursday evening before Memorial Day, as in right now. So what I'm going to be doing on my Facebook and Instagram and Twitter all weekend, starting, about 20 minutes ago was the first post. In real time, I'm going to be posting about the characters. So what I just posted was Matt and Greg are leaving Sarah's six-pack abs class. And then a little bit of a hint of what's to come. Do they know what lies in store the next time they walk up Halstead Street? And there's usually a video or a picture. Now, normally I go around Chicago, I go around Boys Town, and I've even been, in the Loop doing some of these because Matt, the main character, works in the Loop. And I'll do live video. I'll do, picture of myself like right now, this is where Matt would be. Because of social distancing, I'm going to be using past videos and photos, but I'm also going to be adding backstory, fresh backstory about the characters, about the scenes, and just my inspiration. So that started tonight and it will continue all the way through Monday. And it's a lot of fun for me to do as a writer.
I love it. That honestly was what really, really kind of pushed me to start reading was that because I follow you on social media, and you can now see at the scrolling along the bottom, if you would like to follow David on social media, please do so. That was like my big thing was like, I didn't want to in a way get spoiled because I wanted to follow along. I love this idea of the real time, like going down the same path as the characters in the book. So when I saw that that was happening, I think it was after the first post that you had put up. I grabbed the book and was like, okay, I'm going to start reading this. And I started going through and I started reading it. I think I even sent you a picture and I was like,
You
okay.
did. I think I posted that as well.
Yeah. And I posted to my social media too. And I was like, okay, like I'm going to do this. Like I've got to keep on, I got to keep up with this because I want to really take the time and just enjoy being able to read
Yeah.
this and see the real time posts that you were doing, um, and especially because I got the book from you, like I said, on my first trip up to Chicago. I'd never been to Chicago before, and that first trip up here, it was kind of a whirlwind of like, okay, let's go see all of these places. And we went to Roscoe's, we went to Sidetrack, Boys Town, not necessarily where most of the bars that I would frequent are, or let's, not that's not the bear scene. The bear scene is more Andersonville, which
Absolutely.
when we switch over to Summerdale here in a second will be a great thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but it really kind of lends a vividness to the readings. So if you are from Chicago, if you've lived in Chicago, you've been to Chicago, you will definitely be able to go through and really kind of imagine all these places in your head with no problem. And I think the next time that I came up, or one of the next times that I came up after I read Gay Bash, and I saw you, we walked North Halstead. We did a walk. I forget where we were going, but we decided, okay, we're going to walk from here to there. And we stopped at the corner where Roscoe's
Yeah.
is and took a
Yep.
picture over there, just because it was like it was so nicely like encapsulated. Like, okay, the feeling of being right there. This was
Yes.
the intersection that is talked about. This is this whole thing. So
Yeah.
I love the fact that it's just so easy to kind of drop yourself into it and feel like you are one of those spectators in the book. So that's a huge like just I don't even know how to really describe the feeling. It's just that this is the feeling that people who read books actually get. so for you know, so for me to have it, I'm like, oh, this is what people have been talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted that's how I wanted you to feel, whether you've been here or not. I just wanted you to feel like you're here, you're present with the characters, you're going through everything that the characters are going through. The good and the bad. And I think in some ways the neighborhoods, both, Boys Town and certainly Andersonville, I think they play characters in the story. It's great scenery. And I really took advantage of that by describing just enough. So you felt like you got a good feeling of it. But if you were living here, it also wouldn't feel stale. I wanted to make sure that it felt evergreen in the way it was describing the neighborhoods.
Fantastic. It's honestly, it is such a fantastic book. It is available as a paperback. It's available
Yes.
as an ebook. Keep wanting to call them books on tape. Um, Showing my age there, but it's fine. It's fine.
Oh,
Uh, so ebook, audiobook,
yes.
and it's also available as well, ebook and audiobook. That's
Yes.
I've somehow managed to blur those two things in my own head. So
Absolutely.
paperback, ebook, and as
Yes.
an audiobook as well.
Yes.
All through your website, davidjcollins.com, all one word. You can see it. Just branding is on point, sir. I will just say that.
Thank you.
If you look at whatever / David J. Collins, it leads right to you. So that's always a plus. And we're working on getting a YouTube channel going with that as
Yes.
well. Keep the branding alive.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Uh,
keep the brand alive and post some readings. That I like doing readings. I post them on Instagram and Facebook, and I think YouTube is a great next step to have some of the readings there too.
Absolutely. And I think it probably should have been stated up front, but we'll state it now in the middle, that I am working with you on trying to get some new things up and running. I'm working with you on the YouTube channel. Uh,
Yeah.
Look at possibly doing some remote work as far as being able to run streams like this for you in the future for your readings,
Right.
because of the fact that you're not able to go into bars or into coffee shops or into these places to do author readings. The
Yeah.
festivals that line the streets of Chicago throughout the summer are
Yeah.
having to either be pushed back or postponed or canceled outright for this year, because we don't know what the summer is going to look like, the end of summer is going to look like. So we'll just put that out there that I am working on some projects with you for that. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to make sure that I got you onto the show first, just because
Thank you.
and I always say it this way: it's never a matter of that I just am trying to push something for a dollar. Like that's never a thing for me. Like I if I don't believe in what I'm helping work on, I don't want to do it. You know, no matter what the price is going to be, or no matter what the turnaround monetarily will be for me. Because when it comes down to it, you have to have integrity in what you're promoting and what you push. So, which is why if I didn't enjoy reading Gay Bash, if I didn't enjoy reading Summerdale, I would not be doing all of the promoting that I do well before we even talked about doing anything together.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that my podcast mates would tell you that I have talked about the books quite often on the show. We do a segment called One Ups. It's the things that are giving us life in pop culture, and on more than one occasion, Gay Bash and Summerdale have
Thank
been
you.
that list of one ups. So we'll just put that out there. You know, I have a lot of reach and a lot of contact with small businesses. Like I'm wearing my Bear Hug T-shirt from Swish Embassy, another
Love
uh,
it.
gay owned and operated small business. So I like to really just work on promoting small businesses and artists and getting that word out there. So so yeah, so when you see more stuff on David's YouTube channel, which I will go ahead and the hard part with doing this is trying to type and talk at the same time.
But
uh,
actually, if I could interrupt, speaking of small businesses, Pat,
yeah,
I definitely want to give a shout out to I'm an indie author. I'm not traditionally published, so I rely heavily on the small business community, which is thriving, which is so active. Here in Lakeview and Boys Town, and certainly Andersonville. I really want to thank amazing bookstores that took me on, and one of them, of course, is one of my very favorites, Unabridged Books, which is
love
right
it.
here in Lakeview. Also, Women and Children First up in Andersonville has been amazing. Transistor, Raygun, over the high holy season of Halloween for Summerdale. I have a partnership with Candyality where they actually have put together a caramel corn crunch mix called Summerdale Crunch, which is very, very addictive, and it comes out. Hopefully we'll be doing that again around Halloween. And also other small bookstores like Volumes in Wicker Park, and Heirloom Books in Edgewater. So really, I love the way you started this, is like really supporting small business. Small business, we just need to keep supporting now more than ever, as the doors slowly open. And just remind people that you can order, delivery, to go, carry out. A lot of our bookstores also have carry out. You can literally order online and then pick it up, or they can ship to you. So again, we really need to support small business at this time, especially our booksellers.
Absolutely, and that's I kind of went on a bit of a rant today with all of the reopening and people being untruthful about whether or not they've tested positive for COVID
Yeah.
and all of these things. And um, one of the things that I went back in and put a comment on my own post because I realized afterwards that it sounded like I wanted everybody to shut down. And I 150% support small businesses when it comes down to it. Use curbside pickup, use any of these methods to be able to support them because sadly, our government, whether it's state, but definitely our federal government, isn't doing the things
Yeah.
that they need to help small businesses get through all of this. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, I am
Mm.
so thankful for the people that are out there and that are providing
Yes.
essential services.
Yes.
Um, so if you can go and support them, I still think that we should not be having people inside of barbershops and all of these things. And I have friends that own and run salons or work in salons and people that are struggling. And I don't fault anybody for doing what they need to do to survive, but
Mhm.
it's a time that we really should have been taken care of by the government that's supposed to help us, and they aren't. But
Right.
in the meantime, we as a community of artists and people that are working together to make a difference and make a better world, we'll figure out a
Yeah.
way to help lift each other up and support each other. And like I said, this is my small way to try to be able to do that. So
Thank you.
Let's shift over. So now that we've
Yeah.
talked about the gay bash and the
Yes.
importance of this weekend, which again is just so exciting. We've talked about the bookstores, and I will tell you this: I love the fact that you post about them as much as you do, to because they
Mm,
support you, you support them. But I also
yeah.
love walking down like Clark Street in Andersonville and walking
Yeah.
by and peeking in, especially after you've just posted like, oh, that's in the window, and going and looking for the books and seeing them there. So it's a cute little, almost a game of a scavenger hunt, and trying to be like, all right, look, look, look. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool, got it. But let's shift over. Speaking of Andersonville, one of
Speaking
my
of,
places up here in the northern part of Chicago. Let's
yes,
talk Summerdale.
let's. It is. Horror's fun. After I finished up Gay Bash, which again came out in 2014, and I knew this was a one and done. There will not be a sequel. I'm committing to that. The book is finished. I thought, what am I going to do next? And for some reason, scenes and dialogue are starting to come in about addiction, about characters that were fighting, addiction, dealing with it, going back and forth, and then being clean, and then falling under influence in this. So I was trying to write this as fiction, and it wasn't working. It was coming across a little confrontational, a little judgmental. But I believed in these characters, and the dialogue just kept coming. And then there was this landlord, and finally, when the landlord, Mr. McGreevy, came into the story, I said, I've got it. I need to write this as a horror novel about addiction. That way, it's non confrontational, it's non judgmental. This is simply their stories. And then it made sense. So I imagine it as it's a trilogy. I've written the first novel. The second one, because of various things going on in the world, the second novel will come out October of next year, but it's a lot of fun writing horror, and the response has been very good. So the story, Summerdale, is about four gay men, four addictions, one landlord from hell, and that landlord, of course, is Mr. McGreevy. But I also want to use addiction. Horror is social commentary, I think, at its best. And I am using addiction as a metaphor for, I think, very pressing issues in the gay community, including racism, misogyny, substance abuse, and domestic abuse. And those situations, those conversations through the characters are going to continue through the entire trilogy. They're all represented in the first book, and I think they're important things that we just don't talk about enough in the gay community.
No, absolutely. It was a very intense read. I will say that it was on my last trip up here before I moved. I grabbed Summerdale, and I'd made a promise to you. This was so if 2019 was my year to read my first book in forever, then 2020 was my year to read my second one. And I had made a promise to you, and I said, okay, when I pack up all my stuff,
You
I'm leaving
did.
Summerdale out, because where I was staying for a couple of weeks didn't really have Wi-Fi. So I utilized, I knew I wasn't going to have as much like, oh, let me just sit here and stream, these shows or whatever. And I said, okay, I'm going to read this. I didn't, because things happen. And I made a last minute trip up to Chicago to look for apartments, and I said, okay, taking this book with me, and I'm going to do this. I have a layover. I have like an hour and a half. I this gives me something to do that will get this item off my checklist, and it'll be done. And honestly, it was fantastic. I started reading during the layover and continued reading. Normally, I had to sleep on the plane ride. It's just easier. I'm usually passed out by the time the plane takes off, and then I wake up somewhere overland, and then
Somewhere
again
new.
touchdown. I'm somewhere. Whether or not it's where I was supposed to be, who knows?
Yeah.
But I got through the first 175 pages between the layover in the airport and the plane ride, because I was just glued to it. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to keep on going. I need to keep on going. I need to keep on going. And at the end of every chapter, I cursed you just a little bit. Just a little
Thank
bit.
you. I love that. That's a that's music to my ears.
It honestly, it was so enrapturing. And I knew that you, because we had talked about this beforehand, I knew that it was going to be a trilogy. I just didn't realize how the book was structured.
Mm,
And I don't want to go too much into that because it kind of it there is a certain method to your madness on storytelling in this book, and it's best to be read and not really described. But every time I got to the end of a chapter, I was just like, damn it. Now I've got to wait. Now I've got to wait for more.
yeah.
And it honestly, it was the best feeling ever. Like I was so excited to read through Summerdale that I recommend it highly to anybody and everybody that's out there. So do you want to do a quick reading for us?
Absolutely.
All right, let's put you back in the spotlight. And here we go.
This is real nice of you, Mr. McGreevy. You got a house full of tenants and you're always fixing meals for me, Steve said, wiping his face again and turning toward the kitchen stairs. But it would be nice to meet someone else who lives here, even to see someone else doing laundry downstairs. I've only been here for a few weeks, but sometimes it feels like it's just you and me in this big old house. McGreevy picked up his spoon and motioned for Steve to do the same. I love when your downstate accent comes back. Well, it does from time to time. Steve blew on a spoon and bit. Wow. He fanned his mouth and tongue. Hot, but so good. You know, I don't even remember how I found Summerdale House. I just looked up and there it was. I wasn't even looking for a new place to live. Sometimes this house finds the tenant, Mr. McGreevy said. Steve laughed. I mean, I've been in Andersonville quite a little bit. Reminds me of Mount Vernon, how friendly it is. But I never noticed this street before. Strange, isn't it? Mr. McGreevy said, blowing another thick spoonful. How some things fall apart and others just fall into place. Steve swirled his spoon through the bowl and brought up another bite. Thanks, Mr. McGreevy. I'm really glad I found Summerdale. So are we, Steve. Now eat up.
I love it. It's so creepy, but so amazing. Ah, it's I'm so excited for the next chapter. Now, are you going with Summerdale 2? How are you doing the following books? Are they going to have new
Yeah.
titles, or how are you gonna do that whole trilogy naming?
So as far as I know, right now the draft is Summerdale 2. And may I, as long as we're talking all about supporting artists, may I also just quickly draw up the amazing artwork of two artists. The Gabe Ash cover was designed by a former neighbor of mine, an incredibly talented graphic artist named Carol Wilmot Sullivan. And Summerdale is designed by T.D. Collins, who just really represented the entire story on the cover so well. So the graphics are an important part of, the cover art is an important part of the story. So as far as I know, I guess the format that's in the first four chapters, the way the first four chapters will continue. Again, not to give away any spoilers, but the central tenets of it, really coming, um, deciding if complicity really is going to pay off for the character. This is a story, it's an exploration in a sense, it's a fictionalized autobiography. It's a chance for me to look back at my own privilege and complicity and things that I should have said but didn't, or stand up for something and didn't. And the characters are kind of in those positions as well. Another thing I think that sets Summerdale apart from others in the genre, in addition to it being an LGBTQ book with gay characters, is that it's the characters who are terrorized are men. To this moment, most horror novels and movies center the terror on children or women. This one is solely terrorizing men, and it's a very creepy supernatural sociopath landlord, who's really pulling the strings and isolating and enabling his tenants until the only place they feel safe is inside the house. So in the second novel, and certainly by the end of it, some stories will be ending, others will be picking up. And that's really exciting. I've got a pretty complex map of the characters across all three. And of course, backstory is very important. I believe in backstory. Just sharing a little bit more about the story, because as I'm writing and as I'm listening and hearing the dialogue as I'm writing it, you just don't know where a little piece, a little some of the backstory of the characters might come in handy for a chapter that's still in the future. So like I said, horror is a lot of fun to write.
Nice, very nice. So I didn't mention this at the beginning. This is the first our first or my first go around doing this online show. I'm using StreamYard to broadcast, but I do get the comments that have been coming through. And we had earlier Rich Lowe waved because he was watching,
Mm.
and we have George Reich. If I'm saying that wrong, George, I sincerely apologize.
Oh,
But
hi, George.
he has a question, and I'm going to pop him up
Yes.
on. It's. I think he hit the enter button before he finished it. But the first part is who will play Matt, and then the
Oh, that's
second part is and Greg in a movie version of Gay Bash.
that's a George I has read the book and was kind enough to reach out to me by email and let me know that he was reading it and that he felt engaged with it and enjoyed it. And I love, obviously I love hearing that it touched someone, it meant something to someone. There's no better feeling for an artist than to hear someone say that. So thank you, George. And you had the question that it kind of reads like a movie, and I saw it as I was writing it almost as a movie. So I don't want to jinx anything, but as I was writing it, and again, it came out in 2014. It took me 6 years to finish, not because I thought I was writing the next great American novel, but because I was afraid. It was getting rejected. Writing is very solitary. It's taking me away from my friends. There's fear of missing out. There's all kinds of reasons why it took 6 whole years, really, to get the courage to hit, publish and make it an ebook, and then a paperback and an audiobook. But I saw T.R. Knight, who I think is a very underrated actor, when I was thinking of what he looks like and the emotional range that I've seen. And we haven't seen too much from TR lately, post Grey's Anatomy, but I've seen him, before that in a couple of different, television shows. And I just think that kind of type is perfect for Matt, where he's very relatable, and you can just follow along his journey, a very emotional journey. As far as Greg, I have no idea. He's one of the few. I've got an actor pegged for almost every character, major and minor, but Greg is a big question mark. I don't know who could play him.
Maybe some of your readers out there can throw out some suggestions, and
That would be great.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
But
and I think it would make a great movie. I think it would translate to the stage. I think all those things are a possibility.
absolutely, and it does it wallops you right in the feels, in many parts, and especially towards the end. And I'm
Mm.
pretty sure that I texted you when I got to the end of the book, and might have yelled at you a little bit for doing that to me, you know. But hey, as a reader, it was well worth it. So are there any upcoming things that you think that you want to put out there, so that way the people that are watching along, whether it's now or maybe on a replay a little bit later. Again, for those of you watching, David's social media is all scrolling along the bottom. It's at David J. Collins on Twitter and on Instagram. And if you go to Facebook, it's facebook.com/David J. Collins, or look up Gay Bash and Summerdale. That's how you would search it on the search bar up there. But do you have any little like Instagram or Facebook things that are coming up that you have planned besides the real time
Yeah.
Memorial Day plans?
I have a few coming up. In addition to writing, also have I do have a mailing an email mailing list, and if you sign up for it, which you can do through the website, you get a free short story called Northerly Island, which is, I think, it's a fun summertime short story. That's a free gift. Definitely be looking at summer. If any of the summer festivals will be happening this year, I know most of them are either canceled or postponed until later in the summer or the fall. I would be going to my fourth year of being at the festivals, being at Midsummer Fest in Andersonville, being at Pride Fest and Market Days in Boys Town, and being at the amazing Lakeview East Festival of the Arts in September. Last year I was right in front of Unabridged Books on Broadway. That was absolutely amazing. So hopefully we'll have some summer festivals. I can't imagine a Chicago summer without them. But I'll definitely be active over the holidays. Of course, over Halloween, the month of October is going to be dedicated to doing a lot more readings with Summerdale, and also carrying it into next year. One fun thing I did on Instagram and Facebook was a contest for people to actually receive a Valentine from Mr. McGreevy. And I will be repeating that. That was really well received. A lot of readers, just left comments or did, I think it was leave a comment or like this post. And they got in the mail a really nicely designed, again, by my cover artist, T.D. Collins. He designed 5 different Valentines. I mailed them. And it was really fun to do that. I think the greeting was something really kind of creepy and snarky, and that went over well. So it's probably something I'm going to do on next Valentine's Day. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, that was, and I was a lucky recipient of one of Mr. McGreevy's anti-Valentine's Day cards, and
yes, you did.
I was so excited to get that. And the year before, you had put up the anti-Valentine's Day cards as PDFs that people could go and download from your website, which was really cool. I have them all downloaded. I didn't get a chance to print them out, but I made
we
sure.
Just moved, so
they're so. The art is amazing. Definitely.
He's such a talented artist.
Yeah, so it was definitely a great thing and a great little way to get people interactive with it. So before we go, because we're going a little longer than anticipated, but it's been fun, and like I said, I really
a lot of fun
to get to know about you and the books and what you do. So a friend of mine, Jaden, has popped in. He left a couple of comments. One is a little bit longer. I'm not going to get into. We can always read that later. But he said that he's looking forward to it, especially. He lives up here. He's in the Andersonville area as well, so he's excited to read that. But his first question, and I can attest to this as well, is: would you say this is an easy book to transition into if you're not normally a reader? And I mean, I'll say that as being not an avid reader, they are very easy to transition into. Gay Bash, it's a great read, and Summerdale, especially because he is a horror fan, is super easy to transition into. So I don't want to steal your thunder as far as answering that.
No, that was a great answer. Horror, I don't want it to read like it's horror. I just want you to connect with the characters, and it's, it's a little weird. Oh, that must be a coincidence. You're kind of following along, because the characters certainly don't know that they're in a horror novel either. So, to a point, I want things to be normal. I want things to feel, like they're comfortable, they're familiar. Mr. McGreevy always has a fresh pot of coffee. He is always at the kitchen table. He always says time for you. He always listens because he's a sociopath, and that's how they ingratiate themselves into your life. That is the horror of it. I often say, Summerdale will not haunt your nights, it will haunt your days. It will make you think twice about the people around you. And that, I think, that's far scarier than, nightmares and things that other authors and other movie directors do so well. But I really wanted this to kind of wake you up to complicity, and the privilege and bargaining that we do, to take advantage of other people, and I want all that to come out in this book. So I think it's a very accessible read, and I wanted it that way.
Oh, that's it. It very much is. And hearing you talk about it, and we've had conversations about Summerdale before.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had any real in-depth ones since I finished reading it. I think the last time that I was up here, well, that's when I came up here in February to Apartment Hunt.
Mhm.
I was reading it, and we got together. We
Yes.
had, I think, 40 pages left, and I was like, "Damn it! Can you go wait outside for like 10 more minutes? Let me finish
I
the pages."
I remember that we went to Lost Larson on Clark Street,
Yeah,
and we were chatting, and we had a great coffee, and then we at your request, I will mention this, at your request, we walked over to where the house allegedly exists at Summerdale and Wayne, and maybe not, depends if you can see it. If you can see the house, you're addicted enough to enter it. That's the premise of the book. um, and that was just, it was a lot of fun. And I think, that's another reason to set my novels in real neighborhoods, because you have the connection with dynamic neighborhoods, amazing neighborhoods like East and Boys Town and Andersonville, that are just, they're fun to visit. And now there's something else that I can hopefully contribute, in a positive way to both of them.
absolutely. So, and then I'm going to pop Jaden's other question up here because I'm curious to know this also. But Jaden wants to know, have you considered doing an audiobook version of Summerdale?
Jaden has amazing questions. The answer is yes. I had a great narrator. I lucked out. Corey Getman was the voice actor who narrated Gay Bash. I knew it the minute I got his audition. That's the voice I want, and he did an amazing job. So I had a very positive experience with the audiobook process. Giving that to a narrator. Um, I know I don't have the voice. I'm not an actor. I cannot read it myself. And as the years have gone on, it is very expensive to do a professional audiobook. There are other options available, but it is an undertaking. You're producing. You're in the position of being a producer, letting go and letting an actor interpret your dialogue, interpret your character. So there's a little there's a little bit of letting go, as far as that goes, but mostly at this point it's the expense. I've also had questions about translation. I would love the books to be in other languages. I would love them to be in beautiful Spanish and Portuguese and Italian, of course. But as an indie author, it's all me. I don't have marketing behind me. I don't have a publisher behind me, and it's really expensive to do a professional translation. So, until these babies, can sell more and pay for themselves a little bit more, I would love to do an audiobook, and open that up to an actor. Um, I think it would be terrifying to listen to the actor read as Mr. McGreevy, but I think that would add a different dimension to experiencing Summerdale.
Absolutely. And that's fine. I'll go ahead and I'll record it for you. We're fine.
Thank you. Done.
He's like, no, I'm good. Thanks. All right. Next. And by the way, George is very excited by your answer for his
Thank
question.
you, George. Thank you.
Yes. So with that, and actually, hey, before we go, why don't you tell people you're not just an author, you also do a lot of paperwork as well, like sculpting. Do you want to
I
mention
do.
that before we head out for the evening?
Absolutely. Also on my website, there's a tab for artwork. And I have, in addition to, to writing, this is going back to high school. I started making, I don't know how or why, I started making houses out of paper. So they were fairly crude in the beginning, like, index cards, just, regular paper. But I just developed this on my own. You would, I guess now the term is naive artist, someone who's kind of self-taught. And I've done sculptural and mosaic, the tradition of mosaic and sculpture that have been actual houses that you can see through. Some of them have, they light up. Several years ago, a wonderful nonprofit called Chicago House, social service agency right here in Chicago, had birdhouse auction and cocktail party. So for several years, I made these birdhouse kind of sculptural, decorative birdhouses, along with other artists who painted birds and made functional birdhouses. So that was a lot of fun. And then just in January, actually in February of this year, I donated a piece called Winter Bridge to Equality Illinois, which has done so much for the community, the LGBTQ community here in Illinois. And I was very proud to donate something that took, was a labor of love, and I think it looked amazing. I also have a picture of that on the website as well. And that's something else that I enjoy doing. I like working with paper, of course, writing, and then also with it as a paper artist.
It's they're gorgeous,
Thank
absolutely
you.
gorgeous. Go to his Instagram. You can scroll through the photos there.
Yes.
You'll see some of it. You'll see the bridge. You'll see some of the older pieces that you've worked on that you post. There,
Yeah, some of them, they go back to the 80s, and my parents. We still have some of them, and some of them were bid, and other people have bought them. Some of them have been given as gifts, but it's something that will always be with me, and it's for future planning of David J. Collins Inc. The artwork actually takes just as much of a place in the creative life as the books do. So I'm really excited about the future and some projects that are on the horizon.
that is absolutely fantastic. You are immensely talented, sir, and I applaud everything that you have produced and that you are continuing to work on. So
Thank you.
I thank you immensely for being our first guest on the Small Business
Thank
Spotlight.
you.
We were talking about doing a half an hour show. We're already at 51 minutes. So,
Oh,
uh,
sorry.
oh no, it's fantastic. We've had people watching through the whole time. So
Good. Good.
I honestly I'm happy to if I've introduced you to one new person, which I did. Jaden is already talking about being interested in wanting to read the books. That's the whole purpose of this, is to
Thank
try to
you.
utilize some of my platform to be able to shine a light on people that I think deserve it, and you 100% are deserving of any and all accolades
Thank you.
that we can throw
Thank
out
you.
there. So, well, it has been a delight. Thank you all for tuning in. Those of you that have been watching the whole time, those of you that have just kind of been popping in and out, I appreciate you all. One of my friends, Robert from back in Orlando, said he love you guys. So thank you for
Thank
tuning in,
you.
Robert. This will live on the YouTube channel for Bears in the City and my own personal channel. We'll share it over on David's new YouTube channel,
Yes.
which
Yes.
just go to
Thank
the
you.
comments and we'll get that up there. And if you have subscribed to him before, don't worry, that stuff is not going anywhere. Just go pop on over to the link that's in the comments here and go
Right.
subscribe to the new channel, because we're going to plan some fun things in the next couple of months. And we want you to be able to tune in and follow along. So go check him out online. DavidJCollins.com is his website. At David J. Collins is his social media handle. And Facebook, either search Gay Bash in Summerdale or go to facebook.com/David J. Collins. David, thank you so much for being our first guest. And to everybody else, have a great night. And we will see you right back here next Thursday night. And don't forget to tune in on Saturday, May 23rd, 7 p.m. Eastern. Bears in the City 8th anniversary digital get down. I'll be here all night on YouTube and on Facebook. So catch me then. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.